What has changed today? We've refined the rainfall forecast some. We've taken Matagorda and Jackson counties out of the flash flood watch and added San Jacinto and Polk. And also we've got more information on the river forecasts. So what are the main threats? Right now, flash flooding is the main remaining threat with beta. The storm has continued to weaken. We're not really concerned about winds. There still will be some minor coastal flooding around times of high tide, and that'll just gradually improve until beta moves east of the area. Then we'll get offshore wind, and that'll further improve. And that rain will continue to occur near and north of the center track and also in some bands out ahead of the system. Here's a look at the forecast cone. Again, now just a weak tropical depression, really not concerned about winds, but you can see with the forecast track there, really looking now like a track just inland of the coast. The latest advisory has the movement at east-northeast at 5, so that's still very slow, but it is starting to move a little more quickly compared to earlier. Now this is a carryover from this morning. Last night and in the overnight hours, we did have, in fact, a heavy rain band that produced 9 to 13 inches of rain on the southwest and south side of Houston. And then there was another bullseye of heavy rain down near Victoria, near the center where it made landfall. Overall, though, we had kind of a broad 3 to 6 inch pattern. But you can see the potential there. If you do get a heavy band setting up in one area, you can get a lot of rain quickly. Here's a look at recent radar. I want to point out a few things. You can see a swirl there just east of Palacios, and that's actually the center. There's really no storms around the center anymore. And we do have a couple of bands, but the most significant bands are east of Galveston Bay. So far today, the showers have given us a little bit of a lull as far as the heavy rain is concerned. But we're not out of the woods yet. This slow-moving circulation tracking just inland of the coast, we could get some of these bands yet to intensify. And we'll also have a rain pattern on the northern side of the track, which you can see here. So still have a little bit to go. The threat should end from west to east tonight and very early Wednesday as the circulation center passes through the area. So what may happen? This is one model's view of things. This is the high resolution rapid refresh, and we talked a little bit this morning about some of these thunderstorm models that handle thunderstorms well, convective allowing models. And so you can see the model reflectivity here shows sort of the shower and band pattern moving with the circulation. And so this loop is from basically 5 p.m. until 8 a.m. on Wednesday. So you can see how once that center passes to our east, and by 8 a.m. this model has it just east of Galveston Bay, it's going to take that rain threat with it. How much rain is this model showing? These shades here of purple are giving us on the order of 4 to 5 inches. We think the potential is there for perhaps 4 to possibly 8 inches, mostly in Harris, Galveston, and points east. The threat the amounts probably a little bit less as you go farther west. As far as watches and warnings, we do have that flash flood watch. We have added a few counties on the north side here, and you can see those in dark green. Corpus Christi is about to drop their watch, but you can see how we have removed Matagorda and Jackson counties. And again, the threat's going to end from west to east as the circulation moves across. These counties and little polygons there in bright green, these are river and bayou flood warnings. Just real quickly on the tides, of course, we've been talking about this for days now. The last tide at Galveston Bay entrance was quite similar to the previous night, up near 5 feet. You can see it now tracking into low tide, so we've got some improving conditions there around low tide. Tonight, back up above 4, that could produce some minor coastal flooding, but the good news is that this coastal flood issue should get a little bit better and better each day, less and less of an impact from coastal flooding as we continue on. And as the low pushes east, we'll have more of an offshore wind, and that will help us a lot. Same idea for the bay. Last 2 nights, very significant high tides there, up around 5 feet above mean lower low water. But the good news is we will see improvement as we go through Wednesday, Thursday, and so on. Here's a look at the additional rainfall that we might see, and it kind of gives you an idea of what we're talking about, how the better chances of higher rainfall amounts are sort of from Harris and Galveston County on east. So we're talking about Liberty, Chambers as well, and maybe up into Polk. The chances farther to the west are less. As the circulation is moving east, there's less and less time for the rain to fall. And as we saw on the radar, the rain is not particularly intense right now, but that could change. So we just have to get through tonight, really. The Weather Prediction Center still has an area of high risk for flash flooding. That includes City of Houston, Harris, Fort Bend, and then parts of Brazoria, Galveston, Chambers, and Liberty County. And this is for the potential for additional heavy rain on top of areas that have already had heavy rain in some cases. So you can see where the greatest chances of flash flooding are and how they line up with our flash flood watch as well. So this is going to be the area of concern. And just really quickly, there is just an outside chance of a tornado. If we were to get a vigorous kind of strong thunderstorm coming in off a band, that would be a scenario where we could conceivably get an isolated tornado. But this is really an unlikely thing at this point. So just some takeaways, and then we'll get to the hydro discussion. Tropical depression beta is starting to move finally, tracking slowly across the area, probably just inland of the coast. And we have that possibility of additional rain and rain bands. So far, the bands have been relatively modest today, so we're hoping that continues, but we could see that intensification tonight. The additional rain may lead to flash flooding and flooding of already elevated streams and creeks. We have had some flooding already from last night's rain. Flash flooding is indeed the main remaining threat from beta. The minor coastal flooding will continue around times of high tide, but that threat is diminishing with time. And really, wind is not a concern right now, as we have a very weak depression with beta. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Katie to talk about some of the hydrology concerns.
Thanks, Dan. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, great. So what's changed? Not too terribly much as far as everything kind of to the west of us. Still expecting the action to minor flooding. The only change is we could potentially see bowling going up to moderate flood stage with the additional rainfall that's in the forecast. So that'll probably be seen in the evening update. That'll probably come out around 7 p.m. As far as Harris County bayous go, especially Clear Creek, we are still seeing it holding pretty steady. You can see on our control points, both at Telephone Road and at Friendswood, that the levels are actually coming in a little bit below than what we were currently forecasting, which is good news. However, I would still lean on the side of seeing some of these higher values as we're going into the evening and potentially overnight hours with the additional rainfall that's forecast. The timing just might be a little off here. As far as the rest of the bayous go, even though we were hit pretty hard on Brays and Buffalo Bayou, thankfully a lot of the heaviest rain is hopefully going to be seen more to the eastern portion of the county, but because of there's that tight gradient, we can't neglect those basins. But I do want to reiterate that because of the heaviest rainfall kind of indicating more to the eastern side of the county, we are pretty concerned that we could be seeing flooding potential on Greens, Hunting, and Halls Bayou. So that's something I know a couple of sites potentially hitting criteria level would be Greens at 59, Greens at Normandy, Hunting at I-10, and then a couple of the spots on Halls Bayou as well. Outside of that, as far as kind of to the eastern side, we're currently not projecting any forecast to a criteria level. However, if we do see some of these higher amounts come to fruition, we could see some of our more flashier basins, in particular on the San Jacinto on the East Fork. We could see maybe New Caney come up to criteria level, as well as some of our smaller tributaries that maybe aren't forecast points could potentially be seeing some flooding issues. So with that, that kind of gives you a big picture of what we're anticipating going into the evening time frame. I'll take any questions that anybody might have.